Okay, here we are in the end game save, and we are in observer mode. It's just so that I could look around the world more freely. What observer mode does is it takes away the, well, just, turn off the fog of war. I'm using the console to just look at stuff. So now we can see everything that's going on. Let's toggle that back on because it's screwing me up. So I think we're actually looking from the point of view of Sweden. I have no idea why. But that's when I loaded the game in observer mode, that's the country it picked, and so I had to actually go into observer manually. I'm not sure what the deal is. So one of the things I want to do is to just kind of pan around the world in observer mode to show everybody what the world looks like. And we couldn't see a lot of stuff. Like this middle part of North America was kind of hidden, and I wasn't really aware that there was a Norwegian Louisiana that was owned by Iceland. I probably did notice it at one point, and I may have even pointed it out, but I had forgotten at that point at least. And as we expected, there's a lot of orange down there. So the conversion process is going to take into account the situation at this moment, what I think would be an interesting game, and how I think the world would logically progress. Plus, one of the things I want to do is kind of, not necessarily rebalance stuff, but to make things a little bit cleaner and more interesting. For example, we've got Muscovy here. Muscovy's got a bunch of stuff down here. And they're pretty strong, actually. If it wasn't for Smolensk and the Immortals constantly being at war with them, they'd be pretty nice. But they have these two provinces up here that, well, are completely isolated from the rest of their stuff. Give them nothing, basically. Well, I mean, they probably do get stuff from this, like lots of money, but in Victoria, too, it wouldn't give them anything. It's just a little up in the Arctic, not doing anything. And Sweden's got a claim on one part of it, and the other one, well, is a port, I suppose. This is whatever. I don't care. And they own this on the opposite side. So one could logically say, okay, Sweden's got a claim on this. Sometime within that 15 years, they declare war on Muscovy and take this. Simple. Other things that are also simple. Okay, Ming owns these provinces. We can look at them and say, okay, Manchu's going to take these two, and the rest of these are owned by Shun, who is now stronger than Ming. These provinces end up being part of Shun, or however many of these provinces that Manchu decides to take. They have claims on these two here, and the rest of these are different culture group, so they probably wouldn't take those anyway. And then say, okay, these belong to Shun, these belong to Manchu, and these belong to Tibet. And it cleans up the map pretty simply without having any problems. Now, things become a little bit more complicated when you look at some of the, I don't know, more complex issues. Let's say with colonialization, and picking apart which parts belong to Spain, which parts belong to Castile, what colonies should be part of what, and just the kind of weird patchwork quilt of colonies that you always end up getting in this game. Now, one could logically state that, well, Castilian Louisiana and Florida are both owned by Spain, so they should probably be a separate country into themselves, while New Spain might be its own thing. Now, normally in the world, in the real world, this is in 1836. None of these countries, absolutely no countries in North or South America, aside from Canada, and I think some of the islands, and I'm talking about like continental huge masses, are owned by any of the European countries. And Canada is owned by England, of course. That being the only exception, every single one of these is currently owned by a European nation. And you could say, well, it's interesting to have that dynamic, but it is also extremely unrealistic. For one thing, that it ended up being how absolutely none of them but Vinland even got any kind of significant amount of liberty desire, simply because of the way the AI works. And that Vinland did not, even though they're actually stronger than Iceland. So I'm going to have to think about that and clean that up, and, you know, maybe say they have some treaties and things like that, where they say, okay, you could take this part, you could take that part, and then we will be, you know, bros in colonies and do some stuff like that. Or perhaps North America will end up being a new Europe with a bunch of different countries. But that's probably not going to be the case. They'll probably end up being 4 or 5, just looking at this map. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then 5, it looks like. That looks like it would make sense to me. And stuff like this, these are all going to be, like, most of them are going to be uncolonized in the sort of way that those areas are uncolonized in Victoria too. Like, it's easy to say that, oh yeah, these guys own these, but in reality, they've probably just claimed them as like, oh, this is ours. But there's not really anybody there. You know, sort of like how Spain had all, or Mexico had all this stuff, and hardly anybody lived there. There were almost no people living in that entire part of Mexico. With the exception of Texas and California. And then, well, Mexican-American War happened, and that was no longer a problem for Mexico, was it? Some of the other minor things, like this weird situation in this, I don't know. Like, I hate things like this, where it's kind of separated like that. I might just give this to the Warkids and say the Albiorkids just live here. Maybe Egypt gives them back that province. I don't know. I'll have to think about things like that. But what I want to do is kind of, in my head, just say, okay, how do we want to do this? How do we want to convert this in the easiest way without making it really lazy? Like saying, oh, the Knights Templar are just Prussia now. Well, they should be, actually, but the fact that they're Catholic means that they can't. Every other thing I think they have qualified for, except for being Catholic rather than Protestant. So they probably should be Prussia. Now think about it. And Bavaria should be Austria, but no, they're Bavaria. There isn't no Austria in this game. So we'll just go through and like look at things like that. Maybe just to make things a little bit more interesting. Say, okay, because there's like some crazy wars happening in Europe that we just didn't pay attention to. For all I know, Napoleon showed up and just did Napoleon stuff and just kind of vanished. But you know, that didn't happen. Somebody was asking about the Holy Roman Empire and whether it would exist or not. Of course, it exists. The reason it didn't exist in real life is because Napoleon got rid of it. And there wasn't a Napoleon in this game. And you can still see that it's like Lancaster, York, Bavaria, Silesia, Thuringia, Lotharingia. It's still pretty divided between England and Germany. And there's not really a whole lot of problems. I mean, Ireland's a part of the Empire. Bohemia, Brandenburg, the Knights Templar. I mean, they're all just like a big part of this. And the weird thing is that a bunch of them are Protestant. And you remember well, for those of you who did watch the old one, that Denmark was part of the Holy Roman Empire in that, and ended up being part of the HRE Axis in Hearts of Iron at the end as Scandinavia. So, because they got inherited by Germany when they got inherited by Germany when Austria formed it. So, there's going to be a lot of things I need to think about. And I don't want to have this drag on and not have anything of substance, just me panning around the world blabbing about stuff. But I just kind of wanted to show off the world and kind of give you kind of you know, an insight into my mindset for what I'm going to do when I go into this. This will probably be uploaded on Friday, along with the last video of EU4, and because I finished the sessions today. This is Thursday, and I'll probably spend the weekend working on it and stuff like that. And I wanted to open an invitation for people to just say, okay, give me some suggestions for things you want to do. Now, I'll probably ignore 90% of them because I have ideas for things like that, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't submit them, because there's a lot of things I ended up working into things, at least in a minor sort of way. Just keep in mind that the more suggestions I would actually end up doing, the longer it will take. And this is going to take a while. It might even take a couple of weeks, or even a month to do this. I don't remember how long it took me before, but if the converter doesn't work, if I can't get the converter to work for me, I'm going to have to go in and do a mess of stuff, because this is way different. This is going to be way more difficult than the Celtic Empire one, which is like, okay, well, we're basically England with part of France, and, you know, I didn't have to do a whole lot with the map, to be honest, for my things. And it's like, okay, I put some cultures over here. No, this is going to be a huge thing I'm going to have to do. And, well, I just wanted to, you know, give you guys a heads up. You know, leave me some suggestions if you want to. Private messages or, you know, whatever. Or just in the comments. I might stream a couple of things about this, but I think nobody would really want to watch that. So, I mean, I guess if you want me to do that, I can, but it's just going to be like, oh, I'm opening Notepad and typing some stuff in. I don't know why I even think that would be a good idea. I probably won't do that. But yeah, this, I think, has gone on quite long enough, so I will see you. I'll do a few of these update videos when I actually have some work done. And I'll be back basically when I have something to show for it.